Hey, it's me, Robert Phoenix, and the light today is rather dramatic. As you can see, I am barely. I'm squinting. I'm squinting through the light. How is everybody? How are you? I have one more sip of my delicious coffee, and let me indulge. Ah, I found these new breakfast bars. They're called Quantum, and it's more than a bar and better than an energy drink. Now, some of you may have very high standards for things like these. Uh, if you're willing to indulge in a little bit of organic tapioca syrup and some sorghum extract with some organic chocolate chips that do have a touch of cane sugar and unsweetened chocolate organic cocoa butter, if you're willing to eat that, you get some other interesting things along with it, including MCT oil, chicory root fiber, and caffeine from green coffee and some monk fruit extract, pumpkin seed protein, almond protein, and pea protein. So the idea is that you get protein, you get caffeine, and you get a little bit of fiber right there. The Quantum Cafe Mocha Almond Chip. Now, this company makes three other bars, but this is the only one that is gluten free. So I have been incorporating this in my morning routine along with my coffee. So that should do it. I have one tiny little sip. Got to get it. All right. How is everybody? How is everybody doing? Let's see. You're honest direct. That's right. The Lord of Chaos only strikes in positive directions right now as we speak. Let's see. Let's do a quick little roll call. Michael Sister Nino. The new next pod, the girl your mom says is dangerous, but seems like you're gonna. I was trying to go for an Aquarian kind of rave vibe uh, early in the morning. It's a weird sound. It's a weird sound. I wonder what sound that is. Huh. Anyway, that was my goal. An Aquarian free spirit. I think I might hit the mark. Esperanza Vince Tarot. She says, I believe I rocked a similar outfit in the late 90s, early 2000s, complete with big ass sunglasses. There you go. Josie's Jazzy Junk, more like late 80s. Of course, it was a bustier denim with pearls, two pieces of Shiner Bach. The sunglasses were because I love pink and I love all of you. There's a version of that for every decade. Jackie Delario is with us. So is Barbara Boots. Ms. Behaven 2 on board. Mary Ducino. Peachy, they're asking about you. Are you done? Are you done for the morning? She got her morning pets in. Let's see. Happy Wednesday in very unusual times, indeed. Over on 15 minutes today. Lena Winkler's here. Liddy Lou's here. Road Trip is here. Dabisu. Looks like Bisu had her own version of today's thumbnail. Seems like I struck a common chord. Janine is here. Hi, Janine. And boof. The Astro Freaks say hi back. Charlie, what a lousy day. What a lousy attitude. Whoa. We're just getting started here, Charlie. Let's see. Dr. Lazaro, the Sabian symbol Aquarius, a big businessman at his desk. That's right. Oh, yes. Big businessman. Let's see. Who else? Baby Robozo. I've been sent by Cash Patel to keep an eyes on you lot. Yeah, Cash Patel and eyes. That's a very interesting conversation, isn't it? Miss Nakia. Hello, Miss Nakia. Perspectivized on your beeswax. Jim McCarthy World. There she is, the lovely and talented one, listening and driving. Thor at the door. Our guy Steve, not quite Thursday, on the porch of Thursday. Katie Lane is here. Hi, Katie Lane. Boycott Super Bowl. I'm not going to be watching it. By the way, speaking of the Super Bowl, Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots, was rebuffed a second year in a row for his bid to become a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Man, it is kind of restoring my faith in America a little bit, that perhaps the sports writers of America have been doing some noticing, if you know what I mean. Because usually it's a slam dunk for somebody like Bob Kraft to get whatever the fuck he wants. And not only was Bob Kraft turned back again from the hallowed gates of Canton, Ohio, but so was Bill Belichick. Perhaps there's a slight bit of resentment for those Patriot teams where it seemed like there was a whole lot of cheating going on. By the way, this is called a tease. I have a bombshell. I have a Steph Curry bombshell that I'm going to be talking about over on 15 Minutes of Flame. I ran across this last night. It is going to blow your mind. And you're going to never be able to look at Steph Curry again in another or in the same light. And I've always liked Steph. I liked how he plays. I've even liked his persona, even though his politics I think are weak sauce. But once you see and hear what he's been up to, you're not going to be able to view him in the same light. Let's just put it that way. It has nothing to do with Epstein. Okay. Oh, I eat those bars too. Look at that. I'm not going to be watching the Super Bowl either. Good morning, Sandra Wells. Good to see you. Mary Ducina, the ingredients in your quantum breakfast bar are great. Sorghum is good stuff. I'm glad you agree. I'm glad you agree. Catherine Rosen is here. Uranus direct in gate 8. I've always wanted lip gloss with caffeine. There's a product. Why hasn't that happened? Hanging laundry. I'll boycott the halftime for the Puppy Bowl, but I can say I'd not watch the game. But I think you can say that you'd not watch the game. Is that what you meant to say? I don't want to put words in your mouth, though, Josie. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer. Your bar sounds like a great addiction. She meant addition. It's good. It's good. You start consuming a multi-collagen peptide every day. Peptides are the miracle substance of these days. How do you know I don't? That's being rather presumptuous on your part. I am heavily invested in peptides. Let's put it that way. Let's see. Who else we have here? Peace and love from Spib Effect. Hi, Spib Effect. Zereth Eternal. We got Steve. Don't tease us like that. I have to, because then you may just come over to 15 minutes of flame, and you'll get you'll get it, right? You will get it. Maria Dange is here. Hello, Maria. Let's Carol Moore. Writing but listening. Good. Writing is good. Amy Gill. What's up, Amy Gill? Soul Traveler. Checking in. By the way, one of the things I will be talking about, and I will tell you exactly what I'll be talking about over on 15 minutes, is Jeffrey Epstein's view of the human soul. It's a very interesting view / take on the soul. And on the surface, it kind of makes sense. But when you go a little deeper, it makes sense in a different kind of way. Let's put it that way. So we're gonna go deep Epstein over on 15, focusing on the Bannon interview, but also not just the Bannon interview, but the relationship that Jeffrey Epstein had with Steve Bannon that predates that interview by a number of years. So we'll talk about all that over on 15. All right, this seems like a good time to move into talking about astrology. 13 minutes in. How about that? About them apples? We're getting right to it today. We're going to load this up. There we go. All right, and I hope wherever you are, life is rising up to greet you. Center Force Culture Peace. Can I write an essay about humanity and peace at the time of spiritual war for a second edition of magazine Peacemaker? I'd be happy to. I would be happy to. Robert Phoenix, or Robert at robertphoenix.com. You can send me an email there. I would be more than happy to. It's Gala. Hi, Gala. Yes. Send me an email. Let me know how many words. I'll be happy to write a piece on peace. I have 3 planets in Libra. We're all about peace. We're all about peace and love. Moira says, good morning. All big changes on the way for my partner. He's moving and starting a new chapter for himself and us. Wow, that's a very Uranus direct kind of thing. Okay, it would be from my private email. I follow you for beautiful. All right, looking forward to doing some writing. I enjoy writing. I used to do a lot more of it than I currently do. TD, always head to 15 minutes after the show. See you there. All right, that's good. That's really good. Amy Gill's got 5 planets in Libra. That's nice. That's nice. And I mean that in all sincerity. If we see, Steve says we have peace too soon. The good people will be stuck here with all the assholes. It's an interesting observation. Maybe the assholes also acquire the need for peace. And I think a lot of these assholes are not at peace. I think they're hollowed out, empty husks who do everything in their power to fill the God-sized void, which includes anything from depravity to the acquisition of more money than they know what to do with in one lifetime. That's what I think. Could they come along for the ride? Well, why not? There's plenty of room on the bus. Forgive but verify. I like that. Forgive but verify. Blood Hair Talk. What's up, Jen? Good to see you. Okay. Let's do some weather. Of course, you know the first one is going to be blank. It'll be black. So we got to stop it. I'm trained now. I'm like a monkey. All right, there we go. You should be getting a good dose of that chart. I'll make it an even better dose. Whoa, look at that. We are now in Zoom mode. Okay, so I'm going to talk a lot more about Aquarius as a collective energy. And this all centers around the Epstein files. And, I had been talking about all these planets moving through Pluto, right? And that once they move through Pluto, we would be essentially initiated into a new time and a new temporal reality that would be more collective in a good way, not collective like a Soviet way, more collective in like I don't know, how would you describe it? Like a timeshare way. What's worse, owning a timeshare or being in a Soviet gulag? Because at least in a Soviet gulag, you know that at some point you're going to be able to get out of it. So maybe that's better than the timeshare. But no, I'd say more in like a co-op. Remember the old co-ops? You joined the co-op and you would provide like 5 hours of work per week at the co-op, either working the register or stocking the shelves or, I don't know, unloading the produce truck from the local farmer, and you got a discount. That was like a really good example of something that is communal and that people put a little sweat equity into and got something out of it. Gone are the days. I mean, I think there still are co-ops, but they became really popular in the 70s and 80s. And there was Rainbow Grocers in San Francisco that is the mothership of all co-ops. Everybody loved Rainbow. Rainbow was the San Francisco version of Whole Foods. Anyway, I digress. So let's talk about the Aquarian Armada. The release of the Epstein files document. By the way, not all of them have been released. Not all of them have been delivered to the public. There's more. But it's having far-reaching consequences. It's not just people in the United States who are, and when I say a collective event, it means that there's something that a large number of people are responding to, mostly together in real time. So if we go back to COVID, that was a collective event. Of course, Saturn was in Aquarius, and Aquarius is a sign that's connected to large groups. And Saturn is the boot on the neck. And so I think it's interesting as well that like Pluto at 3 degrees is kind of at those early degrees of Saturn and Aquarius when COVID and whatever was passing for COVID. was flexing its muscles. And then yesterday, over on 15, I talked about, courtesy of Sayer G, how Epstein was involved in a massive Ponzi scheme to basically profit on pandemics. So we have Pluto and Aquarius conjuncting Saturn and Aquarius right around the same degree, and some of the stuff is coming out, right? But beyond that, we have this large contingency of Aquarius, and it is what's interesting about this is that it is galvanizing people both on the left in what I would call the real right and not the fake right. And the real right are people that are committed to the truth and the truth at all costs, even if it means that some of your public figures that you have trusted and believed in might not look as good as a result of this. You can't really sacrifice one for the other. I mean, I suppose you could, but you would be doing truth a massive disservice. There are people on the left who find all of this very interesting. Now, when it trickles down to Hillary and Bill Clinton and some of their icons like Bill Gates, they may have more of an issue with it. I don't have a problem if both sides get tarnished and tarnished equally. And not only is it happening here in this country, but it is also having big time ramifications in England. And Randy Andy has been demoted. He's been kicked out of the manor that he and the Duchess of York have been living in. And they've been divorced for a long time, but they're on very cordial terms, and they share the vast spaces of a house, a manor. And now Andrew's been kicked out, and he has to go to a much smaller 5-bedroom farmhouse that is kind of near a marsh, right? It's like you're swapping out your zip code, buddy. Now, his older brother has made sure that his house will have the latest additions and upgrades. They've spent about $5 million. And this has been in the works for a while so that he's not living in complete squalor. But I think for a lot of us, living in a 5-bedroom house, kind of a countryside manor with a number of other smaller houses, including a stable, I think for a lot of us, that'd be pretty good. But for Andrew, that's a step down. Now, again, this brings into focus this much larger collective experience. And I think we were looking for what was going to occur as these planets made their way through Pluto. And I can say, right, because Jeffrey Epstein's son is at 1 degree Aquarius, that this is the event. This is the event. And I do not believe the world will be the same as a result of the dump of these emails. As I mentioned yesterday over on 15, Bill Gates is now having to answer for his little scheme about secretly inoculating Melinda for an STD. I'll have more on that over on the other side of the Astro Weather. But this is being drawn into a collective event together. It is the release of these files is the biggest news that is being circulated right now. It's bigger than Iran. It's bigger than Minneapolis. Maduro in Venezuela seems like, I don't know, 2 years ago now. That's how far in the past it is. But what's also interesting about this is that it was an Aquarian effort that forced the DOJ to release what they had. Now remember Pam Bondi, who's a Scorpio, by the way, and all these planets in Aquarius are just cooking her. Hard square. This is Pam Bondi should not be seen in public for a while, right? Because all we heard from her was, all there is just a bunch of videos with Jeffrey Epstein having disgusting sex with minors. I do have a blacked out video that I am going to show today that does implicate Jeffrey Epstein with what appears to be quite young girls. So Pam Bondi was not prevaricating. She was not lying. She was telling the truth about that. But what she wasn't telling the truth about was that there was so much more. And when you have somebody like Thomas Massey, and then on the other side of the aisle, Ro Khanna, come together and really be the boots on the ground to make this happen, that's a very Aquarian thing. Right? It is a bipartisan effort to get to the bottom of something. And we are seeing the rotten fruits of that effort and labor. I don't think the world is going to be the same after this. As I mentioned before, Bill Gates is already having to answer for that. Now, in defense of Bill Gates, question mark, he does point out that it was an email that Jeffrey Epstein had sent to himself. This is what Jeffrey Epstein would do. He would send emails to himself as reminders. He'd just go through his emails. And those were his notes. So just because he didn't send it to somebody doesn't mean that it isn't true. He's an Aquarian and they're quirky. So sending email notes to yourself, I think, qualifies as a quirky way to journal events. Anyway, so this massive stellium in Aquarius is really about that. It's about that. And they had to, all these plans had to go basically through the underworld and expose the dark and seedy underworld. And some of these emails, man, they're pretty bad. One of them has to do, again, this is very Plutonian, and it's a Mars-Pluto conjunction kind of revelation of two girls that were apparently strangled during some rough sex play out at Zorro Ranch, where Ghislaine and Jeffrey Epstein buried them. Well, if you take a look at Uranus, and maybe this is the direct part, it's right on Algol. Right on Algol, right? Which is the star of strangulation, lynchings, decapitation. Hello. And then we have Mercury coming in and squaring Uranus. It's like, that is a really, really disturbing revelation. And that is part of the emails. It seems as though there is either a bit of an extortion racket going on with that email, or somebody wanting some form of compensation for bringing that to the attention of a third party. Feels very extortion-like in some ways. So yeah, I mean, that fits astrologically, doesn't it? Like I mean, it's shocking, yes, but if you've been around these circles long enough, is it that shocking? And if it's not, then what does that say about our society? And even in some ways about us, that we become so cynical and jaded. It's like, oh yeah, that's what they do. And that's how they get their rocks off. A lot of asphyxiation. Got a little too out of control there. Oh well. I guess they'll do better next time. It's not that bad, but there is this weird sense of you're either in deep outrage or, as a default setting, a kind of cynical resignation. Because what surprises us anymore? What shocks us anymore? Like, something that'd be really fucking shocking to get I mean, it's not that these emails aren't getting our attention. Oh, they are. They're, as a content creator, scouring the internet and YouTube, I can tell you right now that this is probably the most talked about and curated content more than anything else right now. And we don't have the ability to track the metrics, we'll call them human metrics, of something like this. And the reason why we don't have the ability, and this is kind of, in a weird way, Jeffrey Epstein talks about this in his interview with Steve Bannon. He uses a lot of examples and metaphors of the human body, which means that Jeffrey Epstein had a pretty good understanding of anatomy. But he keeps coming back to the body as a way to explain things. But think of humanity, and some of us are brain centric, and some of us are heart centric, and some of us are somatic centric, and we occupy all these different spaces, right, as a collective corpus. And so we take the information in based on whatever our own personal technology is, and that's how we assimilate and disseminate that information. But it's not going to be the same by everybody. And not only that, but sitting here, me, you, everybody watching, listening, your body is doing things right now to allow you to watch the stream. You're breathing, your heart is pumping blood, your internal organs are processing whatever you've drank and eat, and you're not fully aware of them unless, of course, you've eaten something that doesn't agree with you, in which case your stomach will let you know, right? And it's, again, part of this metaphor, because we don't know. Like, we just have our own experience. And then for a brief moment in time, if you're here or you're on some other show and you're in chat, you're corroborating your own experience with another person or another person's. In which case, right, it completes that feedback loop. But in most cases, we don't. And it doesn't mean that we're alone in our perceptions, because we're not. It just means that we're not fully capable of understanding the scope of how other people are digesting this information and what they may or may not do with it. And it's a limited perspective, and we can extrapolate, and we could, with all this Aquarius, we could try to approximate what that might look like or what that might feel like. And if we do, the picture starts to get really big, very expansive. To take all that in, it's almost too much to take in some ways. But I believe that this is the release of the Epstein files is in many ways I would say it's a culmination, because we're not quite done. We've got Juno at 13 Capricorn that has to come through here. And it completes this wave of planets from Capricorn to Aquarius. And if we just look at it in that context, right, like Pluto and Capricorn, or Capricorn in general, are the elites. It's the Ehud Baraks and it's the Bill Gateses. We're going to go into the Bill Clintons, and the Prince Andrews, right? Perhaps Donald Trump. These are people that represent Capricorn status. Like, for many people, they think that they're at the top of the pyramid. They're not. But for the public, they appear to be. And if they're not at the top, they're fairly close. They're maybe about 2 or 3 levels away from the top. And all those those Capricorn planets were just lining up. They were like bowling pins, getting ready to be knocked down. By the way, I found a bizarre artifact on Amazon Prime. If you want to waste about 40 minutes of your life in a very amusing way, go to Amazon and watch Celebrity Bowling. It was a TV show from the 70s where so-called stars bowled against each other. Fascinating in a weird kind of way, but only about 40 minutes worth. Anyway, I digress. But this is like the bowling pins are just getting knocked down. And so we're having this collective experience. And Mars is just getting cooking in Aquarius. It is now moving into the second decan, which is the Gemini decan. That's interesting. I think some of that is going to be based on some sort of plausible deniability, like the email that Jeffrey Epstein sent to himself and not to somebody else about Bill Gates. Is that kind of Gemini? There's a bit of a Gemini quality to that. Anyway, let's talk a bit more about this chart. Pallas is coming up on the true node here. And Pallas is in Pisces. And the true node is in Pisces. And they are going to meet and talk about a psychic and intuitive moment in time. It's sort of like a collective dreaming in some ways. At the very least, people will have insights, deep insights into where things are going. That's my sense. And in Pisces, you don't really have control over it. It's like the Holy Spirit. It just seizes you. So pay attention to your dreams. And wherever Pisces is lining up in your chart, that's where you need to really pay attention and focus on, because it will give you clues as to where things are going. And you might make decisions that are very irrational based on what other people might think. Don't let that bother you. In a lot of ways, these are not rational times. I mean, Aquarius is interesting because it's very scientific. Like, that's one of the things that comes across with this Bannon interview is an ongoing dialogue and narrative about math and science and patterns and probability. It's a very long, and Steve Bannon keeps trying to get Jeffrey Epstein to admit to certain things about what he knows about the so-called universe. And by the end of the interview, I would say it's slightly contentious. Now, I don't know if that's a put on because these guys have a history. And supposedly this is the last interview Jeffrey Epstein did. Again, I'll talk about that. So Aquarius can have its scientific and rational moments, but it can also be completely out there and quote unquote irrational. It's funny, during this interview with Bannon, Jeffrey Epstein mentions astrology. And not in the most positive light. However, as I went through AI and looked for how many times astrology was mentioned in the Epstein emails, there was only, for now, there's only one mention, and it was by somebody else who I would say accused, but named Jeffrey Epstein the court astrologer. Isn't that interesting? So Epstein knew about astrology and patterns, and he didn't want to put any faith in them. And I'll get into that, more of that. But that's this quote unquote irrational side of Aquarius. And we know, right? Like, this irrational side, the astrological side, can be very revelatory. And so it may not be rational on the surface, but give things some time and align with the compass of the chart, and you'll see how it plays out. And go back in time, right? Like, if you go back 2 weeks ago, I started talking about all these planets moving across Pluto and that something was going to change. Something fundamental was, I didn't know how it was going to change. Epstein was kind of in the back of my mind because I did talk about Pluto on his sun, and that there would be more revelations about what had gone on in his life. And sure enough, right? So if you rewind the clock, right, we're now in the moment that we're deep into that moment. We do have the moon in Virgo, which in many ways does promote a more rational view, keeping us a bit grounded, and coming into a trine with Uranus tonight, which I think is interesting. So go out and buy yourself a Roomba. Innovate around your home. Get a Roomba. Let the robot do the cleaning with that Uranus moon trine. No, I think that there's some interesting potential there for home remedies and alternative healing. If you're somebody who has interest in that world, you could stumble across something that can be very, very helpful tonight in a lot of ways. Part of fortune is at 0 Libra. We were talking about Libra a little bit earlier. And it's always, I think, better to be harmonious than discordant. Just in general, harmonious relationships bring good fortune. Now, do you want to sacrifice harmonious relationships for going along to getting along. That's the dark side of Libra. And every now and then you have to invoke a little bit of Aries so that you can say no. Libras, yes. Aries, no. We're coming to the end of Saturn in Pisces. We got, roughly 10, 11 days. People keep saying the 20th. And when I go into the ephemeris, it's clearly the 15th. I mean, it may not be as exact as the 20th, but Saturn moves into Aries 11 days from now. And it is the dawn of a new day, a new epoch, a new era. So these are going to be interesting times. Very, very interesting times. I think that's all I have for the weather for now. I hope you got something out of it. We spent a lot of time here talking big picture, but this is where we are. Pluto, we're going to be, Pluto in Aquarius moves us away from the manifestation of the ego, right? The manifestation of the ego is Leo. And I'm not harping on Leo or ego. They kind of rhyme, they kind of go together. But we're on the other side of the chart from that now. And Leo is sort of the peak of the personal signs, right? Like by the time you get to the 6th house in Virgo, and I'm a Virgo, it's kind of a step down in some ways. Like you're moving off of yourself and you're looking around and you're asking, well, how can I help out other people? And that's not a bad thing, right? But it's not the height of, it's not the height of experiencing one's own importance. And it's also not a coincidence that Leo is related to childhood, because when you're a kid, you're the most fucking important thing in the world. All right. We're moving away, right? We're moving away. So yeah, we get into the personal interpretation and what's going on with, just ask to write a piece on peace. Well, I got my 3rd house is Aquarius, which is writing and communicating. And all these planets are going through my 3rd house. So there you go. There's a personal application of it. Figure out where Aquarius is in your chart. It's going to be highly activated and highly accentuated. And it can be about you, but it could also be about other people as well. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. All right. Let's see. Let's get into some True Hemp Science. By the way, if you like the show, recommend it to your friends and hit like on the way out of here to help the algorithm. And I know I've let some of you down before. You've recommended it to your friends, and they said he says fuck too much, and he takes too long to get to the astrology. And if I've let you down, I apologize. But those people aren't really your friends anyway. Just kidding. Today's True Hemp Science star today is none other than the notorious Hunter Biden. He probably could have used some of Chris's CBD. I'm telling you. Hunter, take these gummies. Put the crack pipe down and take some of these gummies, brother. It'll help you reset. Such is the power of CBD and the CBD from True Hemp Science. Organically sourced, the best CBD you will find anywhere. Talk to anybody in chat who has had an experience with the fine products from True Hemp Science, and they will vouch for it. Had a nice conversation with a good friend up in Montana the other night, right after the Sunday night show, and he was getting ready to apply some of Chris's CBD to his nighttime tea, and it was boom, boom, out go the lights. So if you go there, type in 15MINS, and you will get a goodie bag on top of your $100 order $150 or more knocks the shipping down to zero. And a little CBD goes a long ways. If you get a vial of one of their elixirs, like Lumina, this will last you a while. And all you got to do is do a couple drops every day. Helps you reset your cells. And of course, the gummies are the in some ways the main attraction. Anyway, let's talk Hunter Biden. We got 8 minutes left. That's about as much as he deserves. The thing that I was really looking for in Hunter Biden's chart is the kink. Like, where is the kink in his chart? And all we got to do is go to that 8th house. And he's got Sun, Venus, in Aquarius. And I remember doing a show, and it was Hunter Biden likes to watch Hunter watching Hunter. And this is what happens with Aquarius. Like there is this very objectified kind of relationship with the self that Aquarius has. And I'm not judging it. It's neither good nor bad. It's just the way Aquarius operates. Right? It's got a 40,000-foot view and looks down at itself and everybody else. And every now and then it says, I'm going to land for a while, but I'm coming back to the eagle's perch. Keep it warm because I will be back. So there's this voyeuristic quality that Aquarius has. And I often talk about the moon in Aquarius as being voyeuristic. But the sign itself, right, it likes to watch. I mean, even if we just get into this idea of like people watching, that's very Aquarian. You know, like when I was a kid, we didn't have much money growing up. So this is way back in the day when you could do such things. We lived very close to the San Francisco International Airport. And for entertainment, my parents and I would walk around the airport and we would people watch. I mean, I would tag along with them. That's what they would do. Right? They also had this weird other thing they did, which I never felt fully comfortable with. Like they would drive around at night and they would, if a window was open, they would drive to a neighborhood. If a window was open, they would look into the house. Like they wouldn't get out of the car or anything. They would look into that. And I'll tell you why they did that. They were looking for design ideas so that they could incorporate them in shit that they were doing. And what did my mother have in Aquarius? Jupiter. She had Jupiter in Aquarius. Anyway, that's it, man. Aquarius likes to watch. It likes to observe. And Hunter has that 9th house, right? So it's up there high in the chart, but it's also squaring Jupiter in Scorpio down in the 5th house. What do you think Hunter Biden likes to do as a pastime? He likes to have kinky sex and get fucked up. Very Jupiter, Scorpio, 5th house. Let's get into that kinky square, shall we? Yes. Now it's a wide square, but it is still a kinky square nonetheless. 7 degrees. You got Jupiter at 8. And Hunter's got Mars in Aries. And he's wounded, right? He's actually, there's a part of me that actually feels sorry for Hunter Biden. And I know that he's, you know, about as creepy as Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Gates, right? I mean, it's been a while since we talked about Hunter Biden and his escapades with women who may have not been of legal age. But I also feel like he's wounded. And he's got that Chiron Mars conjunction. And it almost feels like he's trying to overcompensate and prove himself in some ways. And if you get into the relationship with Joe Biden and his son, Beau, Bo was always the most favored son, always. And it was Hunter, believe it or not, who kind of kept the family's fortune alive while Joe was out of office and playing the role of the big guy. It was Hunter Biden. And there's been some interesting psychological sort of breakdowns of Hunter Biden doing all of this and trying to get his father's approval. And when old man Biden, right, who's a Scorpio, and his Scorpio planets are going to be at a hard angle with Hunter's Aquarian planets, there's going to be conflict there. And I don't think Joe Biden really wanted to give Hunter the time of day, because Joe Biden is a fucking narcissist. And you can make a claim that so is Hunter Biden. I wouldn't have a problem with that. But he's got a wounded relationship with the father. The father, of course, is Saturn. He's got a moon-Saturn square, and he's got Jupiter opposing Saturn. So a lot of his Jupiterian activities, which involved other people's money in a very Scorpionic way, were going across the chart to Saturn and Papa Biden. Now, this is going to be a bit, I would say, off the record. I'm not really off the record, but I think Hunter Biden was molested when he was young. I mean, he's got Pluto in his fourth house, which is very intense. Does it represent the death of his brother? And then, of course, the connection with Bo's widow, right? With Pluto there, quite possibly. We could certainly make a case for that. But it feels to me like Hunter Biden was molested when he was young, because when you get into that opposition with Pluto, Chiron, Uranus, Mars, there's like just weird shit going on in the Biden household. And again, I'm not giving Hunter Biden the pass, but when you got Pluto in the fourth house, that is a very dark upbringing. It's really dark. Now, he did get into painting, and he's got that Mars-Neptune trine. Congratulations. Taking advantage of your creative abilities. I guess that's a good thing. But Neptune in the sixth house, not the best placement for Neptune. Feeling kind of lost in some ways when it comes to work and everyday activity. However, being in Sagittarius, of course, most of Hunter Biden's exploits are traced to foreign countries, which also gets back to his ninth house, whether it's Ukraine or China or Japan, right? And we haven't even gotten into the laptop. That's another piece of Hunter Biden's expose, right? Jupiter's at 5, so it's in a very wide square with the sun. All right. There's your True Hemp Science star of the day in corpse position, Hunter Biden. Come join me over on 15 Minutes of Flame. We will get into the world of Jeffrey Epstein through Steve Bannon and more. And I'll have the dirt on Steph Curry. So come join us. Thanks for being here. Chattari, you're the best. God bless. Take care of yourselves and bye for now.